Everybody's starting to filter in, so we're going to give everybody a few minutes to get situated, and we'll start at about 5 after. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We're very excited to be here today with all of you to discuss the changing face of sales enablement. We have with us two of the industry's foremost experts on the topic, sales enablement thought leader Craig Nelson and Mindmatrix CEO and founder Harbinder Khera. Before we get started, I want to review a few housekeeping items with everyone. The presentation portion of the webinar will be approximately 40 minutes. From there, we will open the floor for a Q&A session with our presenters. You can ask questions using your question pane. Simply type in your questions and click send. At the end of the presentation, we will do a Q&A session and take as many questions as we have time for. Now, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and I'll hand over the reins to Craig Nelson. Craig has over 16 years of experience in the sales enablement space and has successfully built several startup companies. He has been a part of over 150 sales enablement deployments and still counting. Thanks for being here with us today, Craig.
Thank you. So, Lindsay, I'll take that as my cue. Do you want me to do the backgrounder and then move forward?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All right. We also want to introduce Harbinder as well there. And Harbinder has been behind a marketing and sales enablement company now for going on 17 years. And some of the stats that you see here will represent that point. And really what we're hopeful for today is that for those that are attending, come away with best practices, things that we've learned over the course of the last decade of doing sales enablement. And we don't do it alone. When you look on the left-hand side here, what you're going to see are some of our clients. These clients we're able to glean quite a bit of information from over the years and helping them to sell and market better. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see companies of different types, verticals. You'll see companies that sell direct, indirect, or a combination thereof. We want to take those experiences and talk about those today. On the right-hand side, you'll see some of our partners. One of the things that we've learned over the years is that there isn't any one way of doing sales enablement. And when we're working with our clients today, we work with our partners that are also thought leaders to deliver on a holistic solution. So that said, when we get into the content here, which we'll do in about a moment, we want to make sure that it's interactive. Harbinder and I have talked about this session for some time now, and we didn't want just to present content in a serial fashion. Instead, we're going to do this in very much a discussion-type forum. So let's get to it. Harbinder, I'm going to pull you into the conversation here. Let's talk about
hi,
the buyer's
Craig,
journey.
and hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here to today's webinar, and we actually have a full house. This is a very interesting topic, and topic that is very near and dear to me. And as Craig pointed out, we've been doing this for almost 17 years, from direct sales enablement, from channel enablement. So, and over the last 17 years being in business, I have personally seen a huge transformation in this industry. So that's something Craig and I wanted to share with all of you guys, that how the sales enablement is changing and how it's affecting everybody in manufacturing, high-tech, retail, all different industries. So one of the big things, we have realized that over the last 5-6 years, the buyer journey has changed, and that has a huge impact on sales enablement. Now, if you think about a buyer, the buyer has become more empowered. There's a lot of information online on the peer groups, analyst reviews, product reviews, and people are talking about your stuff. So there's a lot of stuff online. So buyer, before they connect with a seller, buyer basically has made some of the decision about if they want to connect with you or not. Now, as a result, you could have an empowered buyer, or you may have a confused buyer. But now it is the job of a salesperson to really clarify and help and assist this buyer and create a more personalized sales experience. Another important thing that we have realized with this information age, marketing is actually selling and sales is actually closing. Now, in some organizations, that is not the case, where marketing and sales is not perfectly aligned. So the alignment of marketing and sales is very important. So marketing and sales is no longer apple and oranges. They got to coexist. So that's one of the so important elements of the sales enablement here. The third aspect is online sales. So there's a shift. It used to be direct sales, and we talked about traditional definition of sales enablement, onboarding, training of sales rep. And yes, that is still there, but that is good. That is changing as well. And also, a lot of sales is shifting online. You have a lot of B2B e-commerce sites. A lot of stuff is being purchased online. So how do you connect with online buyers? So that's something I'm going to address as that as well. And the last aspect here is staying focused on the last mile. The last mile are your channel partners, your resellers, your integrators, VARs, franchisees, dealers. Now, with the buyer journey has changed, so as the experience the channel partners are going through, how they have to bring in new buyers on board at the local level. So that is something very crucial. When we look at sales enablement, we look at it a little bit more broader, and not just the direct, but online, direct, and channel enablement.
So Harbinder, before we get to this next slide here, where we're going to talk a little bit about the change with the internet that's come into play, let's focus in on one part of the slide, and that's on the lower left-hand side, where we're seeing more of the marketing and sales bubbles there come together. Is that fair to say, where marketing is doing more selling, sales is doing more marketing? And then could you speak to that point?
Marketing is definitely doing more selling, what it used to do. They used to be, marketing and sales used to be in two different silos. Now marketing is playing a very important role, building or establishing initial relationship with a buyer and help gain credibility. So that's where the marketing is playing such a key role here. And then once the trust is built, then it is passed on to sales to close. So nowadays the marketing has to play an important role, and from start to finish, in creating a personalized experience for a prospective buyer. So let's go to the next slide here. This really outlines how the consumer education, the pre-sales stage works. So one of the things that we have seen, before a buyer connects with a seller, they have already researched about your company. They already know about the pricing. They have an idea. They know how your product does. They have looked at the reviews. And they have already narrowed down to few vendors before they start engaging you as a manufacturer or as a vendor. Just to kind of give you an idea, just the last week we're talking to a company, and the person said, hey, I already know what you do. I've already narrowed down to 3 companies. You're one of them. And I really want to know exactly about your price point, how you're going to actually deliver your product and service, because I have a pretty decent understanding about your product online. I've watched a couple of videos and have looked at a couple of your product reviews. And that is what is happening. So marketing has a strong impact on a buyer's journey in the sales process. Because if we didn't have the video online, if they didn't watch what we do, they would have picked somebody else. So this all adds up. So now the important thing is, if this is changing, the sales processes, the sales enablement tools have to change, because selling is changing. So then you look at,
as we're getting into this internet changing landscape, I definitely want to cause you to hold on a moment here and address a couple of points. Right, there's a tremendous amount of information out there that the buyer is seeing. They are empowered, but it's also fair to say that they become very quickly confused. So if you could, speak to how sellers are going through the stages you're representing here to make sure those buyers aren't confused, because there's a wealth of information coming their way.
Absolutely right. We call about these different swim lanes. It used to be a linear sales process. Now you have multiple swim lanes. Buyers are coming from different angles, different multiple touch points. You people coming who looked at your information on social media sites. Somebody has looked at from an email, website, analyst reviews. So the buyers are coming from different places. Now, the important thing for a seller is, it really comes down to is, from a sales perspective, what to say, when to say it, and how to say it to a buyer. What kind of information you want to present to that buyer who's coming from different touch points. So that really comes down to here, it has a lot of different things. For example, the training and the onboarding of your sales teams got to be more efficient, more focused, focused around, creating a personalized experience of prospects coming from, from different touch points. And you have to create that great experience for your prospect.
And to create that great experience, as you're saying here, that takes time, right? Time and energy by the salesperson. And then how do they do that if they have 20 or 30 accounts that they're working with? How do they stay top of mind, given the wealth of information that they got to provide that's targeted? That's something that we hear from our clients all the time, right? So that's one thing that I think, as you look through these stages, how do you get somebody to a point, a salesperson, where they can advise to their many different prospects and clients on a regular and routine basis?
You're right. It's just creating a process and assets mapped to those process, which are no longer static. The process as well as the assets get, based on the behavior of a buyer and a persona of the buyer that can adapt. And then this process can then learn and then assess the sales process salesperson during this whole sales cycle. That's one of the things we'll talk about is the personalization, how it helps, and because at every stage you need different assets, and these assets have to adapt based on the prospective prospect's persona.
And on this point, Harbinder, there's no question, right, with these prospects today. we got to pay attention to them. And one thing I want to do is to do a little bit of level setting before you get onto the specifics here, Harbinder, and that is research has been done. A company by the name of Topo, research advisory firm. And what the research has proven out is that companies that provide a better buying experience will grow revenues at 2x those that do not. So if you could, give us some background. How do we make sure there is a great buying experience?
The great buying, experience comes from how a salesperson, how the marketing organization interacts with the buyer. It used to be that people used to focus on price quality, but it is all about the prospect experience. One of the important things that we realize that when prospect is engaged during the sales cycle, or they're looking at your website or everything else, they try to gauge that how this company is going to provide or deliver the service after I become a customer of this company. So that's very important in terms of the velocity, that how quickly the salesperson delivers the information, which is personalized one-to-one, to that prospect, creating that experience. This is something they remember, and they gauge that how, if they want to do business with your organization or not. And this whole experience is, making prospects satisfied is very important in closing the deal.
Well, we certainly believe that to be the case. In fact, with probably today 9 out of 10 of our deployments, we start off by mapping out the buyer's journey. And we really pivot off of that because there's been a shift in the marketplace. It used to be go to market, now it's go to customer. And we think that exercise is critical. So let's move forward now, Harbinder, and talk about also, what's happened on the technology front. Because 10 years ago, technically speaking, we weren't there. And today we are. And when we look at this evolution here, you can kind of walk through this and give the audience a sense of what we've learned over the years. I think that'd be helpful before we move forward.
Absolutely. As the buyer's journey has changed, so has technology. So, if you look at the old ways of providing sales enablement, so, obviously you have static documents stored in some shared drives. You have a sales portal, and where you're delivering those assets to your prospective buyer. As the buyer journey has changed, how the buyer is interacting with your business, sure, a lot of tools have come to solve that problem. So now you have marketing automation tools that is basically geared to understand prospective buyers' persona and behavior online. Then you have tools that provide sales processes and sales playbooks. And then you have the asset management tools that deliver those assets to a seller as well as to a buyer. Now, here's an important aspect here. You have multiple tools, but some of these tools don't even talk to each other. In order to create a personalized or real experience for your prospect, they've got to have some synergies, a relationship, or connections between all these tools which are developed in silos. The next generation sales enablement platform not only just have the asset management capability, which is crucial, but also have the marketing automation capability built in that can talk and are fully intertwined, that can understand the prospect behavior and can deliver personalized assets to your prospects. Another aspect is channel enablement. Yes, please.
Let me interject there, because I think there's a really important point you just made there, and that is we have to enable sellers to market. We have to enable marketers to sell. And in those bubbles, those groups come together. Ultimately, we want them to be working in concert with one another, not separate from one another, right? So if you look at, in this case, how we've evolved and where we're at right now, it's fair to say our clients will look at us as, and I love this quote, this is directly from a client, they look at us as a single source of truth. Whether we're building awareness with a new prospect or selling to an active prospect or closing one, or maybe even expanding one, there should be one place people are coming to. That single source of truth really ought to be what they can count on. And so I wanted to interject that point because this is back to an earlier point. How do we enable marketing to do more selling and selling to do more marketing?
I agree with you, Craig. Absolutely. So it's a single source where all these pieces, technologies, it's not about technologies, it's all about solving a customer issues, creating those solutions, and that can cut across all of these different technologies which are available. As I mentioned here is about channel enablement as well. So providing marketing automation or asset management capability all the way to your channels, making sure they have the tool set to be more effective selling at the local level. So having said this, I want to move to the next slide here, just to kind of focus on traditional sales cycle. Just a little bit, you probably have, seen this and be aware of this. Basically, buyers and, sellers used to actively, connect with each other. And it was all decisions were practically made by the information provided by salespeople. And the roles of marketing and sales were clearly defined. And they never used to interact that much. That's a traditional sales cycle. Now let's see how this traditional sales cycle has changed. Now what is happening, the prospects are demanding a unified experience across all touch points. Now the touch points could be trade shows, website, email, website, landing pages, sales assets, marketing assets. So the buyers and prospects are interacting with your business many different ways. And the important thing is the seller, a lot of times, if the tools or systems are not in place, is not aware of some of these interactions. So the important thing is, from a sales enablement perspective, the seller should have a complete visibility to prospect behavior, how they're interacting with all kinds of assets, not just the email, not just the web, but the print assets, all these different assets, and then based on that interaction, the seller should be able to determine what makes sense, what asset to be delivered at what time frame, what kind of information, what kind of objection, how the objection has to be handled based on the type of person, persona. So, and having a complete insight to a prospect behavior is very, very important. Now, just looking at the other day, there was a research from Aberdeen Group that if you have a complete insight to prospect behavior, that actually helps around close to 70% improvement in your sales cycle, and close to 54% in lead conversion rate. So that is actually very, very important. So the new sales enablement tools and platforms should be able to provide that level of insight across all touch points.
So Harbinder, to pick up on that point, right, and then we're going to talk now about personalization. The challenge you have is this in sales. Let's say I have 20, 30, 40 accounts. I have all this information that I have at my disposal. The prospective buyer has the same. In some cases, they even have more, right? They really have to appreciate the point that I made in the middle here and also be able to analyze for every client just before they get on that call, where's that particular buyer at? Where do I need to be? Right? That's one of the first things that they need to do. Then, and it's fair to say, salespeople are better critics than they are creators. They'd much rather have, right, templates and information that they could use so that they can interact with these touch points in a matter of moments, whether it be publishing to Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, email, traditional methods as well. So that's something I wanted to bring out. Now that said, let's go to that next slide here, because when it comes down to it, let's say that the buyer is hitting all these touch points, the seller are now hitting all these touch points. How good is that seller? And what I mean by that is ultimately the buyer wants a great experience. We established that point earlier. Now, how could they give a great experience if they don't adapt or personalize the content? Their job isn't just a middleman to push content from A to B. It's to really look at the business that, in this case here, the buyer is running, and appreciating that, begin to personalize, whether it be the web experience and some of the other things here. So if you can begin to speak to this, this all comes back to the great buy experience. How do we do that through personalization?
Craig, this topic has been very near and dear to me, because looking at a client base across people in retail, manufacturing, B2C, have with clients across all these different segments. One thing we realize is no longer B2B or B2C. It's H2H. It's human-to-human interaction. And that's what people are looking for. And that's what the technology, the tools should be able to offer. And the tool set, you have when you look at different assets, could be the web experience, and could be a print experience, could be email experience, what we're delivering to our customer based on their needs and challenges. And based on that, you're providing personalized assets across the board. Now, if the same person comes to your website, you should have the same kind of information delivered to them. So it's a unified experience, but also personalized. And that goes back to my previous slide that enhances prospect experience.
Got it. Got it. So really, it's making it easier for the buyer to understand what it is you're selling by personalization. So it's not just simply changing out a name, changing out a label. It's really making it easier for them to buy. And your point on H2H is a great one, because I think, 10 years ago, people said the same thing. People buy from people. So the power of personalization is key. Let's now segue into a new generation when we talk about the indirect channel, Harbinder, because I think this is one of those areas that in looking at over the last 100 plus of these deployments that has oftentimes been overlooked. In other words, companies will come into a sales enablement project and they'll say, right, let's get it right for our direct sales organization. And then once we do, let's go off and do our channel organization. We believe that's a miss. We believe that day one, all the things we've talked about so far applies to both direct and channel. But it shouldn't be two different experiences. You really need to have one way of messaging, one single source of truth. And I wanted to make this point up front, Harbinder, because when we see clients take into consideration the direct and the channel partners, what's interesting is this, is that you might do a product launch, an onboarding, some kind of activity like that for your direct group, and everything you learn during the course of that, you can ultimately push to your channel partners. So if you can begin to speak now, we're going to transition a bit, right? We're going to talk about enablement of the indirect channel and the importance of that. How do we, day one, plan for direct and indirect, and then ongoing, support that channel group, which for some companies, that might be 70, 80% of your revenue.
That's an interesting point, Craig. And one of the things that if you look at from, how this, over the years, the buyer journey is changing and everything else, the people who have, the last mile is always ignored. They need more tools and processes to support or able to close these buyers at the local level. If you think about the strategy, the process, the content, usually how to sell your product or service typically resides with a few people in corporate. How do you share that knowledge and, information which is consistent across all the way down to your, the last mile to your channel partners? The playbook, how to sell your product is typically, everything is lost in translation and corporate, but, and helping the channel partners at the local level is the most important element. Now, more so because how the buyers are looking at the information and coming and talking to the channel partners at the local level. So you're going to make sure the messaging is consistent. What the buyers, how buyers looking at your organization and what channel is saying is on the same. Everybody's on the same page. And another important thing is making sure the direct teams and the channel teams, they're on the same page as well. The tools the direct team have, the channel have, they're all on the same page.
Exactly right, and that's where that consistency comes through. And when we look at this slide here, Harbinder, it's been interesting to watch as some of our clients have gone from 20% of the revenue being done through their channel to close to 50, if not more. And then what we're hearing from them is this. Sales enablement combined with marketing automation can really, if you will, delegate to that channel partner the ability to target their clients. And in the end, it's all about making it easier for the channel partner to sell because they've got options, right? They can sell your product as a manufacturer. They can sell maybe 5 other manufacturers' products. So if you can speak to how do we make it easier for that channel partner to sell, right, one manufacturer's product versus another? Because in the end, that's what we want. Like we want mind share from that channel partner.
You're right. I think it comes down to starts at the ground zero here, how the channel partners are onboarded and trained, number one. And onboarded and trained in a way that basically the assets and the sales process maps to the buyer's persona, the buyer's journey. So which is not static, which is dynamic. And you have multiple swim lanes, people coming from different angles, but same kind of tool set that you're offering to direct, they got to be provided to channels, so they're more effective in selling. Now, if you do that, obviously, as Craig, you pointed out, the channel partners have choices. They sell multiple products at different vendors. It's somebody who can provide a better playbook, a process that can address these needs. They're going to be more engaged and loyal to your organization.
Exactly. Exactly the point. And to further that point, Harbinder, let's talk about the tools now, and I'll pick up on point one there. So playbooks over the years have become very popular. And I think people just inherently get it. It's not about giving them data sheets and brochures. It's giving them the advice to get on the phone, to do a sales call. And what we don't want is a one-size-fits-all playbook, because it isn't going to work. If you're doing global work, if you're doing work in different languages, if you're doing, selling into different cultures, guess what? Those playbooks need to be personalized too. No different than a white paper. A playbook needs to. Harbinder, if you could speak to this. We know we have to enable both direct and indirect off of the same platform. We know that. If you speak to what's in that platform, what are the things that channel partner, that direct seller, what can we equip them with so that they could sell faster and sell value over price?
Great. One of the things is, channel partners are looking for a couple of things here. Obviously, they're looking for a better process, and all the assets that are in a playbook should be actionable. Actionable in a sense, based on if they're interacting with a prospect, based on the buyer's persona. The playbook should automatically adapt automatically to fit into buyer's persona, and also the online behavior of this buyer's persona based on buyer's behavior. The second aspect is all these playbooks got to be branded with their local brand, whatever the brand the partners have.
Right.
Depending upon the line of business, if you're a franchise business, obviously it has to be brand consistency. If you're a dealer or a channel partner, everybody has their own brand. So all the assets, when you think about an asset, or playbooks, assets that go into playbooks, could be email, sales deck, marketing brochure, website, a landing page, blog. Everything has to get personalized based on their local brand. Because, as part of the enabling channel, it's not just giving them the sales tools, but also giving them tools to generate leads at the local level, help them build brand. And then also enable them to do social selling at the local level. And one of the important things that, as part of the new tools for channel and direct is obviously mobile apps. And, so the mobile apps basically provide instant access to these playbooks or these personalized assets, and also provide 360-degree view to these prospect behavior, because the channel would like to know what the prospect is doing. At the same time, the corporate wants to know the lead they have transferred to the channel, what this lead is up to. So there's a lot more tie-in of the channel partners as well as with the corporate, so the direct channel, everybody is on the same page.
And Harbinder, I wanted to pick up because you made a lot of very, very important points there. We want to enable and delegate, if you will, marketing and selling to the direct team that might be doing target account marketing and selling. We also want to do the same thing with our channel partners, right? But how do we expect our partners and our direct salespeople to get it right? And I guess you summarized it there. If we can give them templates and the ability to customize those at their level, now they're personalizing, specializing, but they're not deviating from the company brand, from the company message. And if you think about some of the clients that we have that are doing it today, certainly agencies, franchise, there's quite a few. And I don't know if you want to share any examples of those companies today here. We've got a few minutes before we look to wrap up that you might want to interject as an example case.
Sure. If you look at, we have a franchise. We also have a client that has got lots of thousands of channel partners. Uh, you know, uh, this client of ours is a managed service. They provide managed services. So they have a lot of MSPs using, their service. These MSPs are basically one or two people shop. These MSPs are channel partners are working in the business, not working on the business. So they don't have any tool set to go ahead and do a lead nurturing or prospecting or have the assets that they can go about and sell to an SMB in their market. So having the tool set available to an individual MSP at the local level, that's one of the things that we have enabled for this client, for all the thousands of MSPs. So that is really, it comes down to providing tools to individual channel partners so they're more effective selling. It's a sales enablement in a box for channel partners.
Exactly.
So then you have, sorry, go ahead.
And that was a point, Harbinder, that I want to bring out there. We can't assume that companies are effectively marketing and selling, companies that sell on our behalf. We can't assume that. We can't assume that they've got people that have the time, the bandwidth, the content. We've got to assume they don't have any of that, hence the sales enablement in the box. If we do that, then, again, it's easier to sell our product than some other manufacturers. So just wanted to bring out a couple of that points. So, Harbinder, appreciate all the important points here. Let's move to the next slide. Let's wrap up here. And I'll let you go ahead and take this from here, and then we'll open things up for Q&A.
Awesome. So this is the last slide. It's just to summarizes, the conversation we just had. One of the things, the sales cycle has gone a paradigm shift, and we have a new buyer, new empowered buyer who knows more sometimes about your product or service than some of the salespeople within an organization. So how do you create the, make the salespeople better or elevate their level of learning so they know more about the product and services as well? So that's part of the onboarding and training, better personalized assets in place. So that's what this industry is going through. Then obviously the second one is the mobile devices playing a key role in sales cycle, where the mobile sales force have access to this information at any time, and that's something that they can create or personalize right from their mobile device and send that out to a prospective buyer. Now, as I said, all these things that are happening has a drastic impact how the sales teams are get onboarded, trained, and all the tools in place to make that happen. Now, and the buyers, focus on more creating a personalized, experience, and overall positive experience for across all channels. So, at the end, what I can say here is, in order to make this relationship work, marketing, sales got to come together, truly aligned, and provide a consistent, personalized experience to a prospective buyer across all touch points. And if that is done correctly, everybody is going to emerge as a winner. And across all sales channels, not just the direct, but the channel, as well as online. I want to emphasize on online again, because a lot of the stuff now is happening online as well. So making sure that there's a tie-in what people see online, what people buy, and how people inside sales, people interact. So all has to be tied together. So I'm going to ask Lindsay and see if we have any questions from our audience here. And so Lindsay, over to you.
Okay. Craig and Harbinder, thank you so much for that webinar. It was extremely well done and insightful, and we're going to open up the floor now to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Please take a moment to submit any questions you may have.
All right, Lindsay, I see a couple of questions. So Once you,
Yeah, absolutely, Harbinder. I think we're going to go ahead and start with this one. It seems like an interesting one. So the one question we got was that we already use a marketing automation platform. Would we need to replace it with this, or is this something that would work with it?
That's a good question. A lot of our clients do have a marketing product, marketing automation product that they've been using at the corporate level, but that doesn't extend all the way to the channels and to the partners. So we have connectivity with, like, we had Oracle partner as well. We connect with Eloqua, HubSpot, and any of these existing marketing automation products, because these marketing automation products, as I mentioned, is designed for marketing, not to enable sales. So, and also to enable your channel partners. So yes, we do tie in with these marketing automation products for the lead. Once the lead is created or lead is hot, could be passed on to our platform for conversion, and so that's really our focus is.
Okay, thank you, Harbinder. The next question we had is in regards to channel networks. Somebody was interested in if you could explain in a bit more detail how this would help them.
No, Harbinder, I'll grab that one. We touched on this about midway through today's session, and to me, this is a key element of sales enablement. Channel partners shouldn't be an afterthought, and for large channel organizations who historically might have had 3 different portals, gold, silver, bronze, subject to the type of partners, we're seeing that doesn't cut it anymore. So being able to put in place a profile-based system that allows a partner to come in to see what they're selling, to have playbooks that actually specialize and personalize to what they sell and how they should be selling in their particular location, somewhere in the world, that's crucial. So yes, this is definitely a channel enablement tool for both direct and indirect, but the key there being is that it's going to put some discipline in place. And one thing that we talked about briefly was onboarding. The old school way of doing channel enablement was you went out and recruited as many partners as you could with the hope that 10% will produce. That doesn't cut it anymore. This is a solution for channel enablement, and your hope is that companies are selling your product, not the other competing vendor's product, by making it easier. So maybe 30 or 40% of those that you recruit are producing. So those are a couple of important points that need to be made when you talk about channel enablement.
Craig and Lindsay, a lot more questions have just come in. So I'm going to basically, look at some and answer a few of them here. One question is, how do you hold your sales accountable, channel accountable, and measure, what they're doing, from a reporting analytics perspective, and measure how engaged they are with your business? That's a very important question. And, the important thing is when you provide the tools to channels, and obviously the tools is also you're providing leads to channels. And traditionally, when you pass a lead to a channel, it's lost. It's completely lost. You have no visibility to that lead. That's number one. So with the platform, you can track exactly what the channel partner is doing with that lead. If they're not doing anything with the lead, you can take the lead back. So you have a complete visibility to the lead that you have transferred to your channel partner. That's number one. Number two is measuring channel engagement, how engaged they are with your business. Are they really engaged? Are they loyal to your business? Are they doing anything? So that can be measured multiple ways. So you have product launches, product introduction, anything that you send out to your channel partners, that you can track their behavior, how they're interacting with your corporate assets, how they're interacting with your communication. That's number one. Number two, if you've given them the tools, and how well they're using these tools. So you can take all these factors into consideration, and that gives you a pretty decent idea that out of 1,000 channel partners you have, 20% are really engaged. The rest 80% are not engaged at all. So that have, from measuring how they're interacting with your leads and how they're interacting with the tool, so you get a pretty decent sense that how, they're really engaged with your business or not. So there's another question here. That's an interesting question. So what are you selling or product? So the answer is we provide software that is sales enablement software to help companies, with their direct channel partners to sell more. So we are software setup, and we also, as part of this enablement is also looking at processes, understanding the maturity model, where they stand. So we do provide a little bit of consulting help to help organizations to kind of look at how these assets map to buyer's persona. So that's what we do. All right, so I have a couple more questions. The name of the software is, it was as AMP, but now it is marketed as Mindmatrix. So, so I have another question here. Okay, let me just give me a second. Okay, so the question is a really good question, and Craig, if you want to answer this, is the B2B prospects are never followed up correctly. And so how would our program can really make this more efficient? So, so if you have, fallen up with prospects, and where the salespeople are leaving all the time, there's 90% turnover according to this question. So how a program like ours can make this more effective?
A couple of ideas there, Harbinder, and that is, it used to be you threw the leads over the wall, and over the wall, the direct or indirect. It's not like that anymore. You really are packaging with that lead some insight into not just what web pages are on, what white papers that in this case here they downloaded, but packaged with that is going to be how to sell to that particular opportunity. Let's say you're selling to an insurance CMO. Guess what? We can package with that lead a combination of things that you should be saying to that particular vertical insurance company. You should also be, queuing them up with specific details that are going to resonate with that role, a CMO. And by doing so, you will clearly get better traction. And oftentimes, that's part of the challenge in selling and indirect selling is that, it's a lead, but is it a serious lead? Well, I don't know anything about it. We can give them insight about it, and then insight on how to sell to it. Again, it's about making it easier. And it's that sales enablement in the box example you shared earlier, Harbinder, which is a great one. That's, we don't have the resources at the channel marketing level. Can you guys provide those on our behalf? And then combine that with the lead itself. So just a couple of ideas there.
I think that wraps up our session here. Lindsay, do you have any questions that you see on your end there?
I think that we've satisfied the majority of the questions in an interest of everybody's time. I think that we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar now. I do want to take a moment to thank everybody for joining us, and we do hope you'll join us again in December when our webinar will be focused on channel sales specifically. And that will conclude today's presentation. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody.